Let's move now to North Africa and the latest on the earthquake that struck Morocco on Friday. The death toll now stands at around 2,800 and rescue teams are battling blocked roads and inaccessible areas in the high Atlas Mountains. I'm joined by our correspondent, Giles Gibson. Good day to you, Giles. I understand you're in Marrakesh. I wonder if you could just give us an update on how wide this area of destruction is.
Here in Marrakesh, the city has been relatively unscathed. There is a sense here, as the sun goes down in Marrakesh, that the city is starting to return to normal. I can tell you that the airport, for example, is functioning very well, and that's obviously critical in terms of getting search and rescue teams from abroad, as well as lots of aid and supplies such as water and food into the country as well. But it's a very different story just a few hours drive from where I am here. The epicenter of the earthquake was around about 75 kilometers away from the center of Marrakesh, and that's where there is real devastation still playing out almost 4 days after this earthquake struck. As you mentioned, it's in those remote villages that are perched up in the high Atlas Mountains, villages there made of traditional mud bricks, just really incapable of withstanding the sorts of force that was sent through them by that 6.8 magnitude earthquake. And so it's really there that the search and rescue efforts are still continuing as hope is fading a little bit, and that's also where they're trying to get aid and supplies as quick as they can as well.
Talk to us a little more about the rescue efforts in Morocco. And I know that a number of countries have offered. Quite a few countries have come into Morocco already, but there are other countries like us in South Africa. We've made an offer of help, but still waiting for approval. Is that because the government is trying to organise the logistics of sending out so many teams to different areas?
Yeah, so far the Moroccan government has accepted support from Qatar, from the United Arab Emirates, from the United Kingdom, from the UK, as well as from Spain, which is actually coordinating a lot of the relief effort and the search and rescue teams here on the ground in Morocco. But as you say, there is this question in the air about whether the government has just been too slow to accept offers of help that have come flooding in from abroad, because of course this disaster happened when G20 leaders were gathered in New Delhi in India, and there was just an absolute flood of offers from leaders from all over the world to provide support. I can tell you there are still countries like South Africa, like France, like Italy, which are not very far away from Northern Africa whatsoever, who are still saying, look, we have offered supplies, we've offered our search and rescue teams, but so far the Moroccan government has not accepted those offers. They are saying that they want to manage this instead of just simply, throwing the doors open and letting aid and teams flood in. They want to try and make sure, they say, that they get the right support to the right areas.
You mentioned that it's sort of 4 nights on and hopes of finding people alive under the rubble are starting to fade. I remember with the Turkey earthquake, one of the concerns was the extreme cold. I would imagine that's not an issue, but what are the authorities saying about the possibility of people still being alive under that rubble at this point?
Well, the cold actually could be an issue in some of the more remote villages because, of course, they're perched up high in the mountains. So the nights up there, even though we're not in the winter, can be, pretty cold at this time of year. It's sort of in the start or the middle of September. So there is concern about that because some of these more remote villages, the ones really high up where, you can't even drive there. You have to drive to the end of the road and then get off and set off on foot or take a donkey instead, is what one of the local guides here has told me. It's those villages where, we are still trying to get an exact sort of assessment of the situation, but we believe that there are around about a dozen or so villages that have not even received any help whatsoever. They have been presumably sleeping out in the cold at night. They've had no shelter, their houses have been destroyed, and they are still waiting for help to come and arrive.
Yeah, it's a very worrying situation. Last reports we have are 2,800 people confirmed dead. I wonder if you could tell us if there's any update on that death toll, and also just give us an indication of how many people have been reported missing.
Well, there still are thousands of people missing is the estimate, but what we've seen over the course of the last few days or so is that the Moroccan government has been updating that death toll, which currently stands at just shy of 3,000 as we speak, but they've not been able to give any sort of an official estimate as to the amount of people who could be missing. And that, I think, is just a reflection of the situation we have where, you know, this disaster, the epicenter of this disaster was not around a big city where you have a better idea of the amounts of people who could have been, you know, in certain neighborhoods, for example. The epicenter of this disaster was in just such a remote region. There are hundreds of these different villages, I'm told, scattered over the mountains, and so it's just really, really hard to get a sense of how many people are potentially still missing, how many people could be wounded, and indeed, as I mentioned, some of these villages have not even been reached by assistance yet.
Yeah, very worrying situation. Thank you so much for that update. Coming to us live from Marrakesh in Morocco, that's our correspondent Giles Gibson.